Ghahate, Keshe, and greetings from the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I am John Ghahate. I'm the museum cultural educator. Our museum consists of many segments. Our whole museum is entitled We Are of This Place because these stories, these components of who we are as Pueblo people tell us who we are, who our ancestors were, and that's the story that we want to help explain to our guests. So as we visit our virtual tour, we want you to enjoy it and learn who we are as Pueblo people. So let's begin our tour of the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center. We're going to begin with our section that we call the Emergence. The Emergence are ways in which we tell stories of who we are. Many cultures around the world have their own emergence stories, and many times people will see them as myths or simply storytelling, but they really give it a sense of who we are as people. Many stories begin with beginning in the Grand Canyon. Other groups will say they came from the north, or other groups they'll say they came from the south. Though these are stories, they're very pertinent and they're very elemental to who we are as human beings, even in the year 2000, that these stories give us a sense of place. They give us a sense of being. They tell us who we are and what we do to contribute to our communities and, most importantly, to those who will follow us. In addition to that, because each of these distinct communities are separate, not only in culture, in heritage, and sometimes even in their languages, those stories are pertinent to us, who we are. And we can see how these stories are evidence of what these communities contribute, because we can see the remnants of those civilizations that existed here long before we were. Perhaps we're fortunate enough here to live in this kind of environment that these places still exist, even though they were created a little over 1,000 years ago. Places like Mesa Verde, Canyon de Chelly, Chaco Canyon, we can see the evidence of what was created by other groups of human beings. The important thing to keep in mind is that to sustain these permanent agrarian societies, they had to encompass technologies that we even use today, math, biology, chemistry, and other components of science, that without those constructs, those civilizations would not have been able to exist. So that's what we see when we look at not just ruins, but the fact that these were created by human beings. A common thing about our emergence stories, as it applies to our Pueblo people, is the continuance of life, certainly the beginning, but also how all things are connected. As we see behind me, our spiral, our sun dagger, it exemplifies how science and social structure combine together for helping stories explain who we are. But at the same time, we can take that same idea and look at it and see how science applies, how we talk about our environment, our solar system, all of these things that contribute to the way that human beings are able to create their lives and also sustain their communities. Certainly, we now know that our Earth orbits around a sun, a star, but thousands of years ago, people were observant of their environment and they created images on what's their interpretation of their environment. The sun dagger is an exemplary symbol of that idea, that they understood that their environment consisted of many forces that they didn't always quite understand. And in doing so, these stories contribute to who we are even today. So we incorporate all those ideas together to tell who we are so that we continue to practice these cultural components of who we are. We tie them all together in binding our communities together. Then we throw in our languages that give us a sense of being. And that's what this whole section of our museum talks about. How emergence is important to who we are and how it binds us together and gives us expectations. It gives us expectations and hopes for the future that we will continue to tell these stories and that with education and all the things that are available, the tools that we have, our stories will still be heard in the next millennium. As we finish up here with our emergence story, we invite you for our next segment of our Tour Tuesdays here at the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center. So please join us next time. Please send us any feedback, questions, or inquiries about our museum to the information listed below. And again, thank you for joining us for another segment of our Tour Tuesdays.